Hello, everyone, and welcome to the That's the Setup podcast, the podcast that sets up the platform to have a conversation about any and everything. I am one half of your host, Roland Mayhew, and the other half is the beautiful Miss Sharika Duncan.
Hi, everyone. Today is Halloween. These Americans love Halloween. Did you know that Halloween is reportedly like $1 billion business?
What?
Like billions and billions of dollars? Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know that many people cared about Halloween.
Right. People get so
It's
excited.
to Christmas, reportedly.
This is really a big deal for most people. They can't wait. I was driving along the main street of downtown, and I saw like this seasonal store, Halloween store. I think it's called Spirit. It was jam-packed today. So many cars.
Even in this pandemic, people are still lined up to celebrate Halloween. Is it really that serious?
Yes, it really is for them.
I hope they showed up to vote. They're acting like that.
Yes, I don't understand it. I really don't. And, this is the time of the year where people are frightened. This is obviously we've been frightened all year long, so we've been in this state of mind since March anyway, fearful.
Oh, fear. Yes. 2020 has been a mixture of all kinds of emotions and stress. And I think fear is like trumps them all, to be honest with you. You're fearful to go out because you're afraid you may catch something that may possibly kill you, depending on, I guess, your system or whatnot. Or you may risk your loved ones on bringing something home, and you can't touch people the way you used to anymore. You can't sit in the open public place and inhale the same dirty air. A lot has changed.
Yeah, and the condition honestly hasn't changed. I mean, we've always been mindful of germs and disease and uncleanliness.
Yeah, I think to some degree, right? But then, let's be honest, like when you're like, just want to let your hair down and you like have a nice little drink and you're out in public, at some point, it's not like you forget cleanliness, but it's like it's not a priority anymore. But now it's like that's the first thing on your mind. Like you reach for the hand sanitizer, you got on your face mask. In some places, I've seen people wear gloves on their hands and like plastic bags on their shoes while they're out grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, right.
Yeah, I saw someone post their Halloween costume as hand sanitizer.
Oh.
They were hand sanitizer, okay, for Halloween.
Look, those are creative. That sounds funny.
I think it was Cynthia Bailey. So check her Instagram account out today. Or the other day, I know she posted her costume as hand sanitizer. But, yeah, it's an eerie feeling. Like, it's a bad feeling of panic. Like there's a phobia triggering this perception of, like, what we think is real danger or even fake danger because, let's be truthful. Some of it is very overly exaggerated at times and for a real purpose, and sometimes it's, fake. It hasn't been proven. So there's this fear of just being caught up in the midst and not knowing. So that emotional state of mind of just exploring, how do I protect myself and my loved ones, right, from harm or danger? Because we don't know what to believe. All we know is, what we see, that perception that is always the warning sign to prepare us to take action,
Yeah. So
Like,
I'm guessing our topic today is going to be about fear, right? It seems like that's where we're heading. Is that right?
I think I like this particular topic. It's fitting for the occasion of today. And even when, with the gun violence, right, with the shootings and the mass shootings, it's sort of like it prompts some of us to take some type of active approach of gun training to protect, ourselves, like equipping ourselves to know what to do with a gun, in order to protect our home and our family members, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to see. Those classes pop up everywhere, like on social media, to get your license to carry. A lot of people are jumping in those classes just because of this fear, to equip ourselves so that we could at least feel comfortable in our fear, right? So if we had to protect ourselves, we know how.
And then in order for you to protect yourself, that also has become a privilege, and it's only given to some. Some, even if they are in imminent danger, if they try to protect themselves, they find themselves locked back up in the system, or they find themselves stripped from, basic American citizen, privileges and things like that. Fear is just, I don't know. Fear causes us to do and to lose so much. You know what I mean? It causes us to overreact sometimes, but then sometimes it causes us not to do anything at all. So I guess that's underreact. It causes us to rush into things, and sometimes it causes us to just freeze in place.
Yeah.
It causes us to think too much. Sometimes you're scared to think at all. They're afraid to fail, because there's so much pressure. It's not coming from society itself, pressure coming from family and friends, pressure coming from even yourself, because you set yourself either at a high expectation or you have no expectations for yourself. Fear is like an invisible ghost that's like holding you hostage. It's like giving you that bear squeeze, that bear hug. It's like squeezing every breath out of you, and you're like, what the heck? How did I even get in contact with this ghost? I thought ghosts don't exist, right? So fear don't exist, right? But somehow we attract it.
But some type of way, at least you acknowledge the state of mind that you're in. Like some people don't even understand their state. Like they experience anxiety and not understand where is the anxiety stemming from. And it could be a fear of, say, for instance, like you mentioned, like you're frozen. You don't want to be proactive in launching your new business venture. You may have the latest cutting-edge technology idea in the invention in your home that you may be afraid to jump out there and promote it, or, try to gain investors, pitching the idea to others who could assist in that effort. That fear of not being prepared enough. I mean, how do you know when you mentioned that you were able to acknowledge that you were in that state of fear, but some people don't acknowledge it, and then they experience anxiety and continuous anxiety, and it grows larger and larger. I wonder when is enough? Like, how are you able to step out of yourself and acknowledge the state of fear? You know what I'm saying? Because you're in the moment of experiencing it and settling in it, and not birthing out that idea, not moving that business venture anywhere. So you're in a state of just stagnant. So you're experiencing anxiety because of your state of just complacentness.
Sometimes some people don't even recognize that whatever it is that's holding them back whatever it is, it's keeping them from sleeping, whatever it is that's keeping them from forming healthy relationships. They don't even realize that part of it is fear, because fear has a way of magnifying the worst qualities in us, And as human beings, we don't want people to see the worst in us. So what we do, we put on a mask and hide and we pretend, when deep down inside we're like battling our inner issues, in some way, somehow fear has a way of, like, it could be the smallest thing, but it blows it up and makes it even bigger than what it is. And when you don't recognize that's what it is, then you can't address the problem. Instead, you behave all irrational, or things just take a different turn. So the first thing is you have to recognize that there is some kind of fear. Whenever there's something that's delaying or deferring anything pertaining to a person, they have to look at fear, not as the main catapult, but there's some type of fear, some type of something, intimidation, worry. All those are distant cousins of fear for me. You know what I mean? Once you identify there's maybe some fear there, then you say to yourself, like, you really look at fear in the face, like when you look yourself in the mirror. What are you really afraid of? I mean, is it that serious? Or fear have a way of making you think, if I do this, and it makes you think the worst may happen, when sometimes it ain't really that serious. You know what I mean? Like, we make it bigger than what it is. Like, we see it more energy than what it really brings. It's like fear is like that little tap at your door, like a little knock on your door. You know what I mean? And then once you open the door, it's a little tap. You hear it and you ignore it, and the tap gets louder and louder and louder. But it's when you heard the first tap, and you went outside to see what was happening, it's like you facing it. Even if there was nothing there knocking on your door, the fact that you opened the door means that you ready to face on whatever it was that was happening. And so you nipped it in the bud, for me, and in there.
Yeah, you nipped it in the bud to the point where I remember the saying goes where sometimes we have to laugh to keep from crying. So you numb that feeling, that feeling of fear that triggers, that phobia, and you just laugh to cover it up until one day it just pours over you, right? It just overflows, and you have no way of hiding it then, and it's too late because, now people are looking at you like, oh, it's gotten worse. Like you said, it just takes over you. Because you didn't see the warning signs initially, or you didn't want to see. And, can you imagine being black, like driving while black at night? There's a fear that is just of being who you are while driving at nighttime. I just want to acknowledge how strong, like, the black men in our world, and also black women. I'm sure it kind of, I haven't done any surveying, but just from the overview of listening to friends and family, how they've been pulled over, for certain things. And sometimes some of them are wrong. They may be in the wrong. They may not have a driver's license. It could be a suspended driver's license, and they're fearful of driving, but they have to go to that night job to maintain their family household and take a risk of driving to that job that may be right around the corner that they probably could have walked to or called an Uber. But that fear of being pulled by the law, by the police, and what could possibly happen, not knowing if you were going to make it home, right, make it back home to your family.
It's just like sometimes we allow ourselves, it's like if you're the type of person who doesn't like to face things head on, and you're always avoiding things or avoiding people or situations, you're secretly keeping a pocket full of fear. Basically is what you're doing. And so those people, they do everything they can to avoid, I don't even have what's the word to say. But it's like they find a way to justify or find an excuse or why they're behaving the way they're behaving, when the truth is they you know, you knew you had an issue, but you never did anything about it. You just wish it to go away. Nothing just goes away. And, like, the thing that, what is it that you really fear? Do you fear the consequence? Do you feel the rejection? Do you fear the reaction of from whomever it is that you're afraid of to disappoint? Is it that you don't think you're going to reach your full potential? It's like you have to learn to get yourself into your own zone. Because if you allow people to dictate your timing and your speed and whatever it is that you know, when you should do something or when you should do this and that, then you're met with just so much pressure. It's like, I can't do this, but you're afraid to say, I can't do this. Or I need help, but you're afraid to say, I need help. What is it that you actually fear? Like, from my understanding, we're not even born with fear. Somehow we pick it up as we grow up.
You know, I believe that there is a hindrance somewhere in the uprearing of certain situations of our population that have been put into that scenario, right? Sometimes we have others who handle that for us, that hinders us from taking care of things ourselves, right? So then we become, crippled, handicapped from being independent of handling things accordingly. So it becomes an onion, and it layer on to where we sweep it under the rug until that fear grows and the probability occurs where you're caught, you know, red-handed. Like, hey, you caught with your pants down. Dude, all you had to do was tie your shoe to avoid tripping. It's that simple. But it becomes just a whole, you know, tornado just because of that simple prevention back then. But I feel it's an uprearing in terms of how we cope or how we prepare our youth into taking care and being accountable for their own situations. I'm not saying all, but I feel like there is a mix of that also. You know, when you speak of, you know, something as simple as a suspended license, it could be suspended for like a $10 speeding ticket initially 5 years ago. Then with the fees that are attached for late fees, it became $300, right? And you unfortunately can't take care of it. You had to choose from $300 paying that ticket or paying your light bill. You're going to choose the life for your family and to take the risk to get, you know. So unfortunately, those are some choices that may be realistic for some people out here.
What about the fear of the unknown? Again,
the unknown.
The unknown, the way the mind plays tricks on you, the imagination, you know, they try to scare you. Like, this is happening, right? So let's bring up ghosts and goblins and goons and spirits.
Yeah, and it's that perception of how we see things, and we tell ourselves what's going to happen if we don't, or what we've been told, what we hear. And even about death, you know, or hell or heaven, you know, we've been that perception of what's been told to us to fear, how we interpret what we hear, and it becomes our reality, right? Because it's through our senses how we process things. It's a psychological experience. Yeah, it affects our behavior. You know, we could possibly, if we go back to that scenario of being pulled, right, being pulled by law enforcement, you know that you're caught with your pants down, right? You know there's only one way out of here. Or it may be plain favor that the officer will just give you a ticket and allow you to go home and take care of it through the court of law. Yet in your mind and your anxiety and your perception of fear, you may flee. You may go hide because of this perceived traumatic, you know, perception going on in your head, irrational fear, that phobia.
Have you ever battled with your own fear? Do you find yourself still fearing even maybe the smallest thing, and you say to yourself, man, that's so silly? Or did it take you a while to recognize that it was fear that was in your way, not your emotions or whatever?
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. Now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. I use my podcast to promote and introduce you to my novel that is coming up, The Setup, and you can learn more about that on my website at www.sharikaduncan.com and pre-order your copy today. Anchor, I love Anchor because I'm able to manipulate my voice files and give you beautiful creative pitches in the cast in my script and introduce you to different people and personality that come a part of the episodes and just dialogue with you and meet great and exciting people. So if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money from doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. Hey, I can't wait to hear your podcast. Let's go.
Yeah, I think that fear, for some reason, the fear of the water, right? The fear of body of water, right? And being able to survive in it. The fear of fear of drowning, Mm-hmm. So for me, I had to control that fear by signing up for swim classes, even if that meant not being successful at swimming at the end of the course, although growing more free in the water, right? Or learning how to float even, or even put on, a life, jacket, whatever that means, but closing that gap of fear, that level of fear to minimal. So I think there has to be a need of breathing through that panic, taking time out to acknowledge that you have fear and anxiety. Like, hold on, my heartbeat is racing. I have to acknowledge I'm literally uncomfortable. I'm distracted. Yeah. I'm worrying. I'm pacing back and forth. Hold up. This is not like me. I'm outside of myself. This is not normal. I have to first acknowledge, by taking the time out to acknowledge, that I'm in a state of fear, and possibly taking care of yourself, right? Maybe calming your nerves by having a bath or drinking, some chamomile tea, whatever that is, to calm you, right? Fighting your fears. We have to be in control. So now we have to switch that state of being reactive to fear to being proactive in controlling it, to putting ourselves back in balance by, number one, acknowledging it and taking time out to calm yourself if you can. Because you got to calm yourself to think logically.
Well, I have an interesting thing about fear that I want to share. So, as far as I can remember, everybody's been like Disney World, right? I'm hoping everybody's been at some point in their life. So, you get on these roller coasters and you get on, what is that elevator ride, that was it Halloween Horror Nights, whatever it's called? The elevator goes up and it goes down and bounces back and forth. I used to love all those kind of rides and anything that spins me in the air and bring me back, right?
Yeah.
Well, one time I went to some kind of, I forgot the name of the amusement park, but it's in Valdosta, right?